Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am doing my labor and delivery story today. I finally got a little bit of time to get away from baby, and my husband Kevin is watching him downstairs, so I am upstairs in the separate room for our little one. He's finally here. He was born on July 4th at 3:59 p.m. He was 9 pounds 11 ounces. So it was a long labor and delivery, and I just wanted to come on here and kind of share my experience, how everything went, and just talk about everything that happened. I have a long list to share with you guys. It was a long labor that I went through. It was 60 hours, 60 and a half to be exact. July 1st, we decided we were going to go out to a movie and we were going to go to dinner and a movie. So we had all those plans done. We were going to go. On the way to dinner, I started to get contractions, and it just felt, like cramping, but it was a little bit more intense. They were not consistent by any means, but I was having contractions. So that started, and then when we were at the movie theater, I started having contractions still. They weren't consistent. They were just every couple minutes, not every couple, but like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. We'd be sitting there and I would grab Kevin's hand just because I was having a contraction. So that started that day. We came home. I was watching TV on the couch. Kevin and I were watching TV on the couch, fell asleep, and at 2 a.m. I woke up and I was having contractions on the next level. So they were a lot more consistent and they started to get a lot worse. So at that point, we just started tracking them and just making sure that we knew when we needed to go in. My doctor said to go in when I was having contractions 5 minutes apart for 3 hours or more. So we just kept tracking them. All of my contractions were about 8 hours apart, and they were lasting, I don't know, anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds. We went in there and we got checked in as outpatient. So when we were in there, they checked me. My contractions were 6 minutes apart. They checked me and I was 3 centimeters dilated. I was 70% efface and -1 station. So they had me walk around. They said, okay, we're going to have you walk around for an hour and then we're going to see if you progress any. I was basically 2 a 3, not all the way a 3 is basically what they said. So we walked around for an hour, came back, they checked me again. I was still at the exact same thing. So they said, we're going to have you walk again for an hour and a half and then have you come back. We'll check you and then we'll see what we need to do. Went around for an hour and a half. I was literally walking and I would have to stop and like hold on to the railing at the hospital and hold on to Kevin's hand or something just so I can get through the contraction, and then we would keep walking. So it started to get pretty intense, and it started to get very consistent. So I was like, great, we've got to be making progress. So then we go back and they say, well, now you're at a solid 3. So basically, I didn't progress is what they were saying. They were like, you're not really progressing, so we're going to go ahead and send you home. I started freaking out because I'm like, how are we going home at this point? Because at that point, we were at 3 centimeters and I was having contractions every 1 to 2 minutes, and they were really intense. And they had me hooked up. They had the baby hooked up. I mean, everything. And they were like, you know what? You have to go home because you're in what's called latent labor. Latent labor you can be in for days to weeks is what they told me. So they said, you're basically having the contractions and everything's going on with your body, but you're not going to be progressing. So they said, we need you to go home. We're going to send you home with an Ambien and take some Tylenol, try to get some sleep. At 4:28, so 7 hours later, after we had already been at the hospital, they sent us home. And I took the Ambien, and Kevin said I fell asleep for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Woke up, ate some pizza, went back to sleep within that hour and a half to 2 hours. So then started to contract a lot more. It was getting so painful that I was like, we have to go in because at this point I'm so miserable. It hurts so bad, and there's no way that they're gonna send us home if I'm in so much pain. So we went in, and this is now on Sunday at 6 p.m. So we went in and they checked me, and I mean, when we were walking in, I had to stop a couple times because it was so freaking painful that I was just like, we have to stop, we have to stop. And I was holding on to things, and I was just like breathing through it, but it was hurting so bad. We went in and I ripped my clothes off. They ended up checking me right away. Like, the nurses were very attentive, got me in right away. They checked me, and I was 4 centimeters dilated, 70% effaced, and -1 station. At 7 p.m., so an hour later, they finally put my IV in, and they said, what do you want to do? Do you want to get the epidural, or do you want to take a whirlpool bath? I told them, when I was home the hours before, I had taken a shower, and the heat and the warmth of the shower had really helped out with my contractions. That I told them, you know what, I'm going to try the whirlpool bath just to kind of calm myself, and then do the epidural afterwards. So at 7 o'clock, after they had done the IV, I took the whirlpool bath, and I was in there for an hour and a half. At 8:30, I finally came out, and the lady came out and gave me the epidural. The epidural was painful for me. She basically was sticking the needle in, or whatever that piece is. I didn't see any of it. My husband was in there. He was holding my hand, and you have to be hunched over, so it's very uncomfortable. And when she was trying to stick it in, she was hitting my bone. Finally, after I told her a couple times, she's like, let me know exactly where you might feel this. And so I told her, it's on my right side. And she's like, okay, let me try to go over to the left side a little bit more. If I can't get it in the next couple of tries, I'm going to grab someone else to have them try. So finally, with me just telling her where it was actually hurting, she was able to move to the left and found the spot, and it was done. So she finally got it in. I started feeling relief pretty much immediately. They gave me some medicine. They gave me the epidural. I got that medicine, but then they also upped it up with just a little bit of that same medicine, but an extra dose into my IV. So it was basically just no pain. I would feel pressure, but I wouldn't feel the contractions, because at this point the contractions were so freaking bad. I was just like, oh my gosh, I was grabbing onto things. I was like you really have to breathe through them. If you don't breathe through them, there's no way you can get through them, because it was just so painful. So once that happened, they checked me at 10 p.m. I was at 5 centimeters dilated. I was at 5, almost 6 centimeters dilated. I was 90% effaced and -1 station still. They asked me if I wanted them to break my water. We asked them, is there a pro and a con to it? She said most of the time they have to break it anyways. So we said, sure, go ahead and break it. I had so much fluid that came out. They mentioned it, and then I could actually hear it. So they said I had a lot of fluid, and he was still really high. So that happened at 10 p.m. Then on Monday, July 4th, so mind you, I was in there on Saturday, July 2nd, so now July 4th, I'm in there at 12:10 a.m. They checked me, and I was 7 centimeters dilated. I was 100% effaced, and I was still at -1 station. He was still sitting really high, so they ended up kind of tilting the bed up and having the bottom part of the bed come down, so I was kind of sitting and my legs were down so that he can kind of drop more, because once that water broke, he did come down a little bit, but not enough for him to really make a big difference. So they had me sitting up, and that was uncomfortable because you can't sleep. At this point I was exhausted. They don't give you any food. You can only have water. That was it. I mean, I was starving and I was exhausted because I had been up basically since Saturday. This is now Monday. I had been up since Saturday at 2 a.m. every 8 minutes having contractions, and then going to the hospital, and then every couple hours they had to come in and check me. So I was only getting like an hour half an hour to an hour of sleep in between them checking me, and it was just miserable. So I would recommend you eat a lot before you head in, because you're not going to have anything once they actually admit you to the hospital. At 1:30 a.m. I got a catheter and I started getting the shakes. So a lot of people get shakes, is basically what they said. It's basically your body doing what it needs to do to get to the next spot in labor. So she said your body's progressing. That's just a way of your body telling you that you're progressing. So it was uncontrollable. You're just kind of like really shaking, and then my teeth were chattering, and it was a weird feeling. So that ended up happening at 1:30 a.m. At 3:45 a.m., they checked me again. I was 8 centimeters dilated. I was 100% effaced, and I was finally at 0 station. So he finally did drop a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And from 4 to 7 a.m., they ended up putting a peanut ball in between my legs. So it looks like a yoga ball, but it's a peanut. They put it in between my legs, and I would roll over from side to side with the peanut ball every 30 minutes. So again, not sleeping at all, because they would come in and they would switch me sides. So I was sleeping on the right side with my legs on either side of the peanut ball, and then 30 minutes later onto the other side. So they kept moving me over and over just so that they can get me dilated even more. So at 7:20 a.m., they came in and I was 9 centimeters dilated, still 100% effaced, and I was 0 station still. At 9:15, I was 9 centimeters still, 100% effaced, and then I was +1 station. They started talking about Pitocin. No, at that point, they started talking about Pitocin, and they said, you know what, I think at this point we need to start giving you Pitocin, because from 7:20 a.m. to 9:15 a.m., I hadn't had any progression from 9 centimeters. So they said, we're going to put you on Pitocin to get you to that 10 centimeters, because you have to be at 10 centimeters in order to start pushing. So at 9:15, they put me on Pitocin, and they started talking about a C-section. I was just at that point so exhausted, so drained, and I was pretty sad that they started talking about a C-section, because I had gotten to this point on my own with basically no medicine until 9:15 a.m. on Monday, when they were going to give me Pitocin. And I just kind of thought, I've gotten to 9 centimeters. I can't believe that 1 centimeter is going to make me have a C-section. I had mentioned in a previous video I would not care if it was something that, we needed to do in order to get him out safely, which again, I didn't care at that point, but I just kind of was a little sad about it, because I said, how can I get all the way to 9 centimeters and then all of a sudden 1 centimeter off, I'm not going to be able to have him through a vaginal birth. So I just kind of was a little sad about it at that point. So basically they put me on Pitocin, and they said, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and see if this will progress you to the next level. Till 2:30 p.m. I'd been sleeping, and then I woke up and I looked at Kevin, and I just started shaking. It was the same type of shakes that I had gotten hours before, and I was like just shaking, and I'm like, Kevin, you need to call the nurse. Just because I felt I was having those shakes again, which they again had told me that it was part of your body progressing. It was just telling you that that's what it did. And then I felt like I had to poop again. So I had that, and then I felt a lot of pressure down there. So all of a sudden, everybody's rushing in. The nurse is rushing in. She's like, good, I'm glad you're having the shakes, because it means you're progressing, and hopefully you're at 10 centimeters. And we're just like, everyone's super excited, because they wanted me to have a vaginal birth and not have to have a C-section, and neither did we. So we were very excited about this. The doctor came in, and she came in to check me. So she's checking me, and she's like, okay, you're still at 9 centimeters. You're almost to 10. There's just a little lip. So basically like your cervix. And then at the top, she basically was saying that there was just a little lip that needed to be pushed back, and then I would be at a full 10 centimeters. So she said, you know, I'm gonna try to push that lip back and I want you to do a practice push. So I'm like, I don't know how to push because I've never done this before. So they taught me how to do the pushing and everything. She went in and started to push the cervix back as I did a practice push, and then that set me over to 10 centimeters. And I was 100% efface. I was ready to go, and then at that point, we started pushing. Um, it wasn't what I envisioned it to be. It's not like the movies where everybody's gowned up right away and you're just Grey's Anatomy all over this place. It's not like that. I basically was sitting there pushing with a doctor right in front of me, just in her scrubs, put on gloves, and just was like, just push, 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 because they knew it was going to take a long time. So basically, I had her there, I had Kevin on this side, I had a nurse on this side, and that was it. We got to a point where they could start seeing him coming out. And then at that point, it got crazy where everybody put on gowns, and it was pretty intense. There was a lot of people that all of a sudden came in and took down part of the bed. They had me all the way at the end. They pulled me down. I was pushing, 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 and then finally at the end, they didn't have me push with the contractions, because basically when I was having a contraction, they would have me push 3 times within that contraction, 10 seconds each time. And then at the end, when they started seeing him actually come out, they were like, just keep pushing, take a breath and keep pushing, keep pushing. Finally, he came out. They put him on my chest for a second. He had a quick, like, cry, like, wail type of thing, and he looked up at us, and then they took him away. They took him over to the warmer. The NICU people were in there, so there was a lot of people that came in all of a sudden. He was over on the warmer, and basically what they were saying is that he was having a hard time transitioning. So he wasn't able to really breathe on his own. He was trying to breathe, but he couldn't just get it going. So basically they took him over to the warmer. They had him on there. They were checking him out, and then they came over and said, you know what, we have to take him over to the resuscitation room. And even just hearing that word just really freaked me out. So I did hear him cry while he was over there. It sounded like he was doing fine, but they said, you know, we have to take him over there. So I had Kevin just leave with him. They came back in, they wheeled him in an incubator. And I was able to put my hand in, and he ended up grabbing my finger. And then they just wheeled him out. And I was just laying there waiting for them to stitch me up. I did have a 2nd-degree tear, so they had to stitch me up. They had to deliver the placenta. I know a lot of people talk about having to push to deliver the placenta. I didn't have to do any of that. They basically just pushed on my stomach and pulled it out, delivered the placenta, and then I was in there. They stitched me up, and everybody basically kind of disappeared. I was in there by myself, and the nurse came in, and she said, go ahead and order something to eat. We're going to have you eat. We're going to have you go to the restroom on your own, because they took the catheter out. And then they said you have to walk on your own. So once you do all those and you get up, you do all of it, we're able to take you over to the labor and delivery, or the NICU, to go see Ethan. So finally went to the restroom, and then finally I was able to get up and walk, because my legs, I mean, I wasn't, from the start of the epidural to the end of it, I wasn't like completely numb. I mean, I was numb, but I could still feel my legs. I could still move them. I had like no problem moving them. They wheeled me over to the NICU, and I finally was able to see him. They had him still in the incubator, but he didn't have the air going through his nose anymore. Kevin said he kept pulling it out. So finally, the last time that he pulled it out, they told Kevin that they were, well, him and the nurse, that they were just going to leave it out to see how he did. The NICU nurse, or the doctor, had came over to my room after they had taken him over, and they had just told me that they had to take him over because he was having a hard time transitioning. So when he came out, he did a cry, but then he was just having a hard time breathing. So they said it was kind of normal with bigger babies and stuff like that. So I was just kind of like, okay, well, is he okay? Is he going to be fine? And they said he's going to be fine and whatnot. But then they were worried about his blood sugar. So it kept going up and down, and they said it was really low. So then they had to keep him, and they said every 3 hours they were going to check his blood sugar. So every 3 hours they were coming and having to prick his foot to get blood out and check his blood sugar, which was terrible because he was getting pricked and had an IV in his hand, and I mean had all this stuff hooked up to him. So I felt so bad for him. So every 3 hours I had to come back. So basically this is how my days went, how my hours went. I went over there, breastfed him. I was exhausted because I had just given birth to him and I hadn't slept in days already. So I had to go breastfeed him, and then I finally went back to my room because they had to still check me. They had to push on my stomach to make sure my uterus was going down. They had to give me medicine. I had to eat something, and so I would go back to my room. I would get back to my room. The nurse would come in, would check me for like 15 minutes. I would go to the restroom. I would change my pad that I needed to change out. And then basically I would eat some food, and then I would sleep for like 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And then I would get up and go all the way to the NICU, feed him again, and do it all over again every 3 hours at the most. It was insane because he would wake up earlier than 3 hours, so then I would be going back, and it was just that way until we ended up leaving on the 6th. So it was really intense. It was very overwhelming. It was very hard. Kevin and I were both exhausted. We didn't know what the heck was going on, and it was just really hard. The other thing that was really hard was the fact that I didn't get a lactation consultant right away. Finally, I had a third person come in, and she was the most helpful, nicest person ever. Finally, she came over to the room with me. She said, call me once you wake up. I'll come over with you and help you breastfeed him. So she came over and was hands-on. She showed me how to do hands-on expression. She showed me how to latch him on correctly, everything. And it was so helpful because at that point I had felt like I was just failing at breastfeeding because I didn't feel like he was getting enough of what he needed because of the fact that they were going off of numbers in the NICU, and they were just like, you aren't giving him enough because his blood sugar is low. And I'm like freaking out because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is new to me. So I would suggest if you have a baby that ends up going to NICU like that, ask for a lactation consultant right away and have them help you right away, because I, again, didn't get help until, really 3 hours before we left the NICU. And I was, at that point, 2 days in, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I would suggest, if anything, if you want to breastfeed and you want to do it correctly, I would suggest getting someone to come meet you in the NICU and help you and be hands-on, because the girls that were in there that weren't hands-on, they didn't help me with anything. They were just talking to me, and I'm like, oh, this isn't helping. So I would suggest, again, ask for a lactation consultant to come in and help you guys right away if you have a baby that goes to the NICU. And even if they're not going to the NICU, if you don't have someone come into your room right away, have them come into your room right away, because it's going to make a world of difference on how quickly you adjust to it. So those are my 2 cents on breastfeeding. I know I kind of went off on a rant there, but basically that's what happened with the NICU. She came in, she helped me, finally got everything going, and then they were like, we're going to discharge him when we discharge you. Just going to treat him as a normal baby and not go off of numbers like they normally do in the NICU. So that's basically what she said. She's like, we're going to treat him like a normal baby, and we're just going to let you guys go home. And she's like, we'll just do what, you guys do what you need to do at home. So, and then the other thing too was that they were sending us to our pediatrician the next day. So they were like, you're going to get him checked tomorrow anyway, so it'll be fine. So finally came home, and I finally got to do the skin to skin with him. I literally told Kevin on the way home, I'm like, I just want to have a moment with him and just do skin to skin. So I basically sat on the couch, took my shirt off. I mean, I didn't have anything on, and I put him right on me with just his diaper, and we fell asleep for like 2 hours, just him on me. And I mean, Kevin was watching, so make sure you have someone watching you guys. But he was watching us, and we were just content, and we were asleep, and it was fine. And then I was able to wake up. I was able to breastfeed him fine, and from then on, it was pretty much a breeze. It was amazing. It was awesome. I would do it all over again for him. I would do it even twice for him because he's just amazing, and it's the best thing in the entire world. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be doing a video of our labor and delivery. I was able to take some video of it. I won't have all of the parts in it just because you can see certain things that I don't want you guys to see. And I'll be doing my essentials too on what you should have on hand once you get home, because there was some things I didn't have, some things that I could not live without, and I'll be doing those in the next couple weeks, and I hope this helps you guys out. So I will be showing him in one of the following videos. He's asleep right now, so I'm just going to leave him be because he's just perfect when he's sleeping. So I, again, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.